Hello and good morning. I'm Kat Kabira and I am speaking to you from Bali, Indonesia. And what I was pondering this morning and what I'd love to share with you is trusting yourself, inner discernment. How do you know what's true for you? So if you're a regular student of mine, or if you really resonate with my teachings, then you probably have what I call a more open system. Without getting into the full energetics of it, we all have different textures of energy fields. And so just naturally, it's something that it's just how you are. It's like you're going to be more open or more absorbent. And there are definitely ways to help manage and refine and care for how you are, but you also can't change how you are, right? That's always like the people who start working with me and really wish they weren't as sensitive as they are, right? Well, like let's let this be our superpower, especially now. So when we're more open, while on one level there's a more multi-textured or multi-dimensional level of information that you can receive in your body. Sometimes it can be really confusing into how to actually interpret it, and also to have that discernment. And discernment is so essential. And that's the place, if we're going to talk about the body, where our gut can, and I would say our entire digestive system, other parts of the body, our whole body is discerning, but where that can be really affected. So first of all, before I launch into anything, because it's not about what I think and what I feel and what I say, my entire work is getting you into, what do you believe? What do you know? We are, as a global consciousness, global culture, bombarded with more information than we ever have before as a human history. And especially as an open system, like we're going to absorb it. It's going to be in the energy field. You walk into a city or a country and it's like, even if you haven't listened to anything or read anything, your system will start to feel, what is the consciousness of that area? What are the beliefs? What are the fears? What are the strengths? What are the things that you can bypass? What are the things that you can really open within yourself? So let's not think of it as like a bad thing. Every energetic place will kind of wake something up in you, but also will make other things maybe a little bit more dormant or you're not as aware of. And on top of this, you're a very unique individual. So as much as we all are like looking for that magic book or solution or formula, like your essence is your essence and it's very individual. And so what works for you is going to be very different from what works from someone else. So, some of the main work I do with people is just getting them grounded in their body, which for a lot of us, we might even have that wound. And I've talked about it elsewhere where we just don't want to be here. So that can be a continual process of, how can we keep coming back home to ourselves? How can we keep choosing to be here on this planet, especially when things are a little bit crazy? When we're like, I don't know. No, I'm not so sure. So how can we really like root into ourselves, just for our own benefit? Because that will give you joy, that will give you health, that will give you clarity. And then how to not take on what everyone else thinks and feels. And energetically, it's like you can look at someone's system and it's like, oh, wow, that's not your energy matrix. Like you've taken on the household or the country or the city or that person you're training with or that person you're studying with. I mean, as someone who's highly sensitive and open, I would laugh at how even just training and movement, I'd go and train with someone and suddenly like I would take on their entire posture and the way that they felt in their body. So it's something that you can use to your advantage, but if you're unconscious, it can well, I was gonna say fuck. I will say fuck. It can fuck you up. Okay? So, if you have an open system, it's like, how do you stay true to yourself? This is where alone time and having like a little space to yourself, like that's just your energy vibe, is so essential. Like you just need a space where it's like, these are my vibes, so that you can come back in there and be like, okay, right. I'm chilling in here. I'm spending time. Maybe I'm doing some meditation, but this is how I feel. Okay. How can you trust your body? How do you know that your body is telling you your truth? And one thing I can say, having worked with tens and thousands of people, is that everyone's truth expresses itself a little bit differently. So what I advise people is like, have a journal so that you can start to feel, how do you know what is your body saying to you? How does your body speak to you? And also so that you get to know your patterns. Like when you get stressed out, how do you know that you're back in a space of contraction or like a trauma pattern? How can you feel kind of like your typical patterns when suddenly there's like a no, or you're uncomfortable, or you're leaving, versus like, oh, this is what I feel like when I'm expanding, or this is a yes. And you really, it sounds simple, but it's like, how do you know what's true for you? And there's a lot of subtle discernment. So I'm going to give you some examples. I belch. Okay. If you've been a student of mine, I belch. Now, part of it has been physiological, which I've since rectified, just in terms of posture and diet, right? So there is just like a practical, like sometimes we belch or have other experiences in our body just because of diet or posture. Okay. But there are times where it's like, if I'm just starting to clear something, I start belching. It's just like, yep, I'm clearing it out. I'm clearing it out from my system. Energy's moving, and there's a certain feeling about it where it's like, yeah, this something's moving out, and I'm belching, and this feels right. But there's also times when I'm belching, and it's actually because someone's invading my system, or maybe I've inadvertently crossed their boundary, and I'm it's my system can feel that. Like there's been a boundary crossing on one side. And suddenly I start belching, being like, hey, like suddenly we're weaving into someone's system, and this isn't so good, and this isn't so good for us. And like, it's not about staying there and thinking like, oh, we're clearing energy. No, it's like, let's back off. So the very same thing can have different meanings. Nausea. And interestingly, this is all like kind of third chakra stuff. Nausea. Of course, there can be nausea that we get because we're sick in some way, like on a physical level, okay? But what about like, sometimes I get nauseous because it's like my radar is like, this is not good for us, and I want you to remember that your body gets information like sometimes hours in advance, or even days in advance, or weeks in advance, so how do you know? Because your body's operating at a few different timelines. How do you know when your body is like, this isn't right for us? So sometimes I can get that. Sometimes I can get it because a boundary is being crossed, or I'm giving my power away in some way. And there like will be different nuances in how the nausea expresses itself. And it's not going to be just in stomach. It's going to be in the whole, like kind of like stomach, pancreas, like diaphragm, liver, but like all in that kind of like area. Okay. Sometimes nausea can happen because I'm overwhelmed and it's too much information for my system. Sometimes nausea can happen where it's like, oh, I actually I'm energetically processing something that's actually healthy for me, but my system's just kind of nauseous as it's moving. And I'm giving you this because it's like I'm giving you like, maybe 5 different examples of the same exact sensation. And the reality is that, especially if, for me, like I'm going to speak from, having had a complex trauma, highly traumatized background. And so if you resonate with me, probably you've had something like that. Also, don't think like, oh shit, I need big trauma to resonate with Kat. No, like coming out of the womb and being on this planet can be traumatic. Okay. So, the challenge always has been that it's been always hard for me, even though I can discern really quickly for people. Like, I'm freaking so on for other people. But because of having been abused as a kid, and having to like function in a household where it's like needing to survive and get along with these people, and not wanting to see everything that was true, because that would have really terrified me, and that would have been really heartbreaking. I had to constantly twist my system a little bit just to kind of be okay, right? It was a total survival mechanism. And, even though as I got older and I did like so much therapy and, 25 plus years of so many things, there's still that part in my system that can just kind of like twist a little bit, because it's just like we all have, if you've done these patterns, whether you were born with it, ancestral, karmic, whether it happened in the womb, or like something that happened in the first few years of your life, like these patterns are like deeply embedded. In a way, they're your wake-up call, they're your wound and your blessing. And so, like, please, you're allowed to have all your feelings, but please do not get frustrated if you're like, God, it seems like the same pattern keeps repeating itself. So you just have to know if you have certain tendencies, so that when you're in situations, you can name them. And that's something that I do when I work one-on-one with people and with groups, like really getting to know what your tendencies are, so that when you're unsteady, out of your power, in a new situation, you can remember knowing things about yourself. Like, oh, I'm really good at doubting myself. I'm really good at putting other people before me, whatever they are. Just so that you can kind of like run that through your system to be like, am I doing that right now? So you need to know yourself, and remember that knowing yourself is not a weekend workshop, right? And like right now, 2020 and 2021 has been up-leveling our knowing ourself. There's been new grief, new heartbreaks, new fear, new up-leveling, new empowerment, new strengths, new openings, new closings, and it's not stopping. So now more than ever, we really have to be with ourselves. And how can you know what's true for you? You got to be in your body. And it is more challenging for those of us who are sensitive to be in our bodies. So it's like finding beauty around you, finding things that help you feel, finding pleasure in small things, remembering yourself as an artist, not like being good at art, but just like playing and being creative. That's going to help you be in your body. And remembering that everyone has their own opinion and story, and everyone has a different frequency. So we're not all the same. We all are here to exist. We're all here to learn. We're all here to do a lot of things. But everyone here has a different frequency. And so what will light up someone else's frequency may actually bring down your frequency, and vice versa. So that comparison, and especially if you're more of an empath, or you've had a lot of trauma, one of your coping mechanisms might be like looking around and being like, well, what are they doing? What do they think? What do they feel? And it's like that moment that you're giving your energy from your core out to someone else, you're losing you. So if it like, for me, it's always helpful to be like, okay, here's my mission. Okay, my mission is I'm going to stay. Okay, I incarnated right now. I'm here for X number of decades. I'm going to stay. Okay. My mission is I'm going to listen to myself. I'm going to know what's true for me. Right? Like right now, you've got so many decisions to make. And how can you feel inside and know what your truth is? So you need to know that you can trust you, and there's this brilliant, subtle sensitivity in your system that just needs to be turned towards in your heart, in your solar plexus, in your sacrum. And you might have had breaks there. I know for myself, having been heartbroken in so many ways, there's so many ways to break the heart. Having trespassed myself, having been trespassed, having been betrayed, betraying myself, having been raped, having lost babies. that imprints and affects the system. But there's always this current of light in there. There's always a current of light in there. So remembering to trust you, that your body does know the way, that sometimes you need to slow down. Sometimes you need to take space. Sometimes you need to play. Sometimes you need to go play with other people. Sometimes you need to not be so serious. Sometimes you need some nature. Whatever will help you get in your body, and to remember that you can trust what feels right for you. And that, especially like if you've been indoctrinated, so if you're a woman, if you're born as a woman in this lifetime, we've been indoctrinated for thousands of years to not trust ourselves. If you've been any sort of culture, race, class that's been oppressed, there has been a lot of work done so that you don't trust yourself, right? Like to continue to be oppressed, you have to keep being like, yeah, you're right. Like, I do suck. I am less than. Like, you are better, right? Like it takes something to be like, that's fucked up. Like, wait a minute. You're saying because of the color of my skin, there's something different or wrong or bad? Like, we got to wake up from this, okay? So this is like, so when I'm talking about like trusting yourself, like there are certain agreements that we've made, in our DNA that is keeping us like less than, right? And you need to know that you're not. So this is why I want you to listen to you. Don't listen to me, but listen to you. Have that discernment. Everyone has things to say, right? On the media, other teachers, other experts. What the fuck do you think and what do you feel? You gotta trust yourself right now. This is your main mission, okay? So, sending love from, we just had our sunrise. I hope you have a beautiful day or evening wherever you are. And I'll speak with you soon. And if you're still listening, I do have a course, Badass Boundaries, that's like a month-long deep dive starting, I think, August 15th. And it's online. And I've got people already signed up all over the world. So I'm always playing with like every single time zone. I'm a master at it. And if you really, it's like boundaries, internal boundaries, external boundaries, owning your power, owning your truth. It's time.